There are days in football that are never meant to be just matches. Days when the grass feels sacred, when time slows down, when the final whistle doesn't signal the end of the game, but the closing of a chapter. Days that become memories the moment they end. And Real Madrid's last league game was one of them. Because this was never just about goals or assists. It was never just about medals or matches. It was about presence, about grace under pressure, about poetry in motion in a world obsessed with power. This was the farewell of a man who turned silence into symphony, a boy from war-torn streets who touched the heart of the game itself. And now, as the curtain falls, we don't just look back, we remember. This is the story of Luka Modrić, the quiet genius, the eternal number 10, and the day that became forever. Before the Bernabeu lights, before the gold and silver, before the world knew his name, there was a boy, a ball, and silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that follows loss, that follows struggle, that follows nights when you don't know what comes next. Luka Modrić grew up in a small Croatian city of Zadar, not on marble floors or manicured lawns, but on cracked pavements and empty lots. There were no stadiums, no floodlights, just the rhythm of a ball against concrete and the dreams of a boy too small for the world around him. He was tiny, he was quiet, he was shy. Football didn't make him loud, it made him free. People didn't look at him and see a star. They saw a kid who looked like he'd be bullied off a pitch. Too frail, too soft, not enough muscle, not enough presence. But football has never been about muscles. It's been about minds, about heart, about touch. And Luka Modrić had that kind of touch that couldn't be taught. Every flick, every pass, every feint, it wasn't learned, it was felt. This wasn't talent, this was instinct. He didn't play to impress, he played to express. And even when the world seemed too heavy for a boy like him, he never stopped moving. Never stopped believing, never stopped loving the game that made everything else disappear, even just for a few minutes. That's where it began. Not in a famous academy, not under the spotlight, but on the streets, with a ball and a dream. A star doesn't arrive, it evolves, quietly, painfully, one invisible step at a time. Luka Modrić was still just a name in local papers when Dinamo Zagreb took the first real chance on him. They saw the feet, the brain, the rhythm, but they also saw the boy, and they knew he wasn't ready. So they did something rare. They sent him out to learn, to grow, to survive. Loaned to Zrinjski Mostar in Bosnia and Herzegovina, a league known for its brutality, not its beauty. He was 18, the youngest player on the pitch every week. And every week he was kicked, fouled, marked hard. But that's where Luka learned what he was made of. He didn't fight back with fists, he fought back with football. He ran the game from midfield like a veteran, picked passes no one else saw, turned tackles into dances. He didn't break, he bloomed. Modrić later said, "You had to be tough, mentally and physically. That year made me." Then came Enter Zaprasic, another loan, another stage, another masterclass. When he finally returned to Dinamo Zagreb, he didn't return as a boy, they got a general. He controlled games, scored goals, led by silence. 3 league titles, 2 Croatian cups, and finally the world noticed. Scouts came, offers arrived, but one stood out, Tottenham Hotspur. 2008, London, the Premier League, the bloodiest proving ground in world football. Modrić signed for £16.5 million, a record for the club at the time. The media swarmed, expectations soared, and so did the doubts. Too small, too light, too slow. Pundits wrote him off after a few matches, said he'd drown in the intensity, said England wasn't for him. But Luka never listened. Because real players don't prove people wrong with their words, they prove it with their play. Week by week, he grew into a rhythm of England's storm, took the hits, made the passes, ran the midfield. He didn't scream for attention, he demanded it with every elegant touch, every calm escape from pressure, every ball threaded between defenders who didn't even know it had passed them. He turned Tottenham into a side with a soul. He was the conductor, the stabilizer, the heartbeat. And suddenly, the same voices doubted him were comparing him to the greats. The world began to realize something profound. Modric wasn't flashy, he was flawless. Harry Redknapp said, "He is a magician. He makes the game look easy." And quietly, behind the curtain of English football, Luka Modric had become one of the best midfielders in the world. But even he didn't know the next chapter would take him beyond greatness into immortality. There are moments in football that don't just change careers, they change destinies. For Luka Modric, it was the summer of 2012. A handshake, a signature, and then the weight of the purest white. Real Madrid. The club where legends don't visit, they stay. Where only a few survive and even fewer become immortal. The press called it a mistake. Too late, too quiet, too fragile for this level. Marca, the biggest sports newspaper in Spain, voted him the worst signing of La Liga that season. The Bernabeu didn't applaud, it questioned. But Luka Modric didn't come to prove anything wrong. He came to prove himself right. His first year was hard. The pace, the system, the pressure. He wasn't the headline player, not like Ronaldo, or Benzema, or Ramos. He didn't roar, he whispered. But what they didn't realize was that football listens more closely to whispers than to shouts. And then something shifted. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but subtly, elegantly. One pass became two. One calm touch under pressure became three. One interception in the midfield turned into a goal at the other end. He wasn't flashy, he was flawless. He didn't need attention, he controlled it. He began to float through games, a step ahead, always in space, always composed. He moved like time bent around him. The chaos of Real Madrid, the pace of the counter-attack, all flowed through him like electricity through a wire. The stadium stopped questioning. They started watching. 2014, Lisbon, La Decima. The final, Real Madrid had waited 12 years to win. Minute 93, Madrid trailing, a corner, pressure. And Luka Modric steps up. Not to score, but to deliver. The ball goes through the air, perfect height, perfect weight, like he painted it with his heart. And Sergio Ramos rises. Goal! The beginning of Real Madrid's golden age. Luka Modric, the architect behind the resurrection. And then came the Trinity. Casemiro, Kroos, Modric. Steel, precision, poetry. Together, they form one of the greatest midfields of a generation. Casemiro, the wall. Kroos, the metronome. Modric, the soul. Zinedine Zidane said, "He controls the tempo like no one else. He is the engine and the artist." For 10 years, he wasn't just a player, he was a compass of Real Madrid. The one who pointed them home when the match went dark. Who else but Luka Modric could deliver a 30-yard outside of the foot pass under pressure in a Champions League quarter-final? Who else could, at the age of 37, outplay midfielders 10 years younger and smile while doing it? He didn't age, he evolved. The legs slowed, the mind sped up. Every touch was a whisper of control. Every pass, a sentence in a poem only he could write. He didn't just play football, he narrated it. For over a decade, Luka Modric walked the marble halls of the Bernabeu not as a guest, but as a guardian. 6 Champions League titles, 3 La Liga titles, countless assists, countless memories. But more than numbers, he gave Madrid something sacred: elegance. He reminded a world obsessed with pace and power that intelligence, humility, and heart are still the most beautiful things in football. And when the end came, there were no boos, no doubts, no regrets, only applause, only love, only forever. There are players you remember by stats, and then there are those you remember by moments. Moments that aren't measured in goals or trophies, but in goosebumps. Luka Modrić gave us those, not in noise, but in silence. In that split second before the pass, in the stillness before the storm. The outside of the foot assist, time stood still. Madrid trailed, pressure rising. But Luka, calm as ever, looked up, and with the outside of his right foot carved a line through the heart of Chelsea. The pass didn't curve, it danced. Rodrigo finished it, but Modrić authored it. That's not technique, that is art. Then there were the Clásicos, where the fire of football burns hottest, where every touch is judged, every mistake magnified, and yet Modrić was ice. He'd glide between red and blue shirts like a whisper in the wind. Dribble, pause, release. Every motion premeditated, yet natural, as if the ball trusted him more than anyone else. He didn't fear the chaos, he conducted it. And then there was 2018. A year no one saw coming, but a year the world will never forget. Luka Modrić, against all odds, against an era of Messi and Ronaldo, was crowned Ballon d'Or winner. It's not just for me, he said, holding back tears. It's for all the players who feel they can't make it, but keep dreaming. He didn't win it because of popularity. He won it because of purity. Because in a time obsessed with stats, he reminded us that football is a feeling. There were no viral celebrations, no chest beating, no ego. Just magic, subtle, consistent, beautiful. His highlights weren't just replays, they were lessons in vision, in patience, in poise. These are the memories that shine, because they weren't built on power, they were built on love. Luka Modrić never chased greatness. He simply played the game the way it was meant to be played, with his head, with his heart, and with his soul. There are endings that feel like endings, then there are endings that feel like eternity. May 2025. The final whistle blows, and Luka Modrić walks off the pitch in the white shirt for the very last time. He doesn't wave widely, he doesn't point to the badge, he just looks around slowly, as if capturing the air, the lights, the sound, as if trying to take it all with him. And in that moment, a silence louder than thunder. The Santiago Bernabéu doesn't cry easily. It's seen Di Stefano, Puskas, Zidane, Ronaldo. But that day, it wept, because it knew it wasn't just losing a player. It was saying goodbye to a soul. I've given everything, Luka says in the post-match interview. But what Madrid gave me was more than I ever dreamed. He walks slowly to the sideline. The fans chant his name over and over like a hymn. Luka, Luka. And for once, the quiet man lets it sink in. This isn't a send-off, this is a salute. It's over, but it's not sad, because everything that needed to be said was shown. On the pitch, with every touch, every pass, every moment of grace. Luka Modrić never needed words, his football spoke for him. And now, the game says the only words that matter. There are players who win trophies, and then there are players who win hearts. Luka Modrić did both. But more than that, he reminded us why we fell in love with this game in the first place. For beauty, for humility, for magic. and for the rare, quiet genius of a boy who played through storm and left behind the light. Gracias, Luka. Thank you, and goodbye.